Welcome to Real Talk with Pam, the show where authenticity meets conversation and where we turn women's lived experiences into shared ones. Today, we have an incredible guest, Abimbola Salt Essien-Nelson. She's a seasoned HR and communications leader, an author, podcaster, and inspirational speaker. Salt's life took a profound turn after losing her beloved sister, but instead of letting grief define her, she chose to transform it into purpose. She founded the Shola Adefolalu Gaska Foundation, which supports vulnerable women and children. Let's dive into Salt's inspiring journey from pain to purpose. Let's get started. Salt, welcome to Real Talk with Pam. It's great to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Pam.
Fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation because I know that you had a life-changing experience a few years ago when you lost your sister, and consequently you wrote a book about it, which I've read. It's a really light, fun, as well as moving story about your sister. Can you take us back to the very first moment that you heard that your sister passed and what your reaction was?
So for context, for those who may not know, so my sister, Shola Adefolalu Gaska, was like my first child. So my mom had her when I was 12. And as far as I was concerned, she was my child. My mom was just like her guardian. And our mom then passed on when she was just about to be 4. And so I really legit became like her mom.
Right.
And having made a pact with God, that please just take care of my sister, take care of my brother and myself, keep our family together at the vigil of my mom, I believe God had kept his part. So from 4 years old to then 36 years old, by this time she was married, and I thought, yeah, my work is done. Thank you, Lord. And then I get blindsided by this news of her passing. I will never forget, it was 11:28 a.m. on the 28th of December 2016 that my phone rang, and it was her husband. And he said to me, "I'm so sorry, Shley has passed." And I just screamed. I'm sure till today, the walls of my office building can still remember me screaming. I was in shock, totally blindsided by this news. I went through the full range of emotions. I think from that day, I don't even know how I got home. My colleagues took me home. And then from that moment on, it was just a series of emotions, from deep pain, to then just guilt, because I was like, on my watch, how did this happen? Then to anger when her husband started to just be funny and all kinds of things. I remember I said to you that this year, I'm trying not to go too much into the details of all of that, because it just always bubbles up things inside of me. But shock, anger, guilt, and then just the shame of, oh my gosh, I let my family down, I let Shola down. And I think recently, and you're the first person I'm admitting this to, even though I was angry at myself, I was angry at her husband and his family. I was angry with some parts of my family who wouldn't let me do what I wanted to do to get to the bottom of what happened to her. I realized that at some point, I was also angry with Shola.
Right.
Which killed me, because I never saw that coming. But I had to process through that pain, because I was like, how could you have been going through something that would lead to you dying and you didn't let me know? We talked about everything, and coming to the realization that I was angry with her as well, that took some getting over. But I thank God, through all the range of emotions, I eventually got to a place of, okay, what are we going to do? Because at some point God said to me, all this advocating, you're advocating, all these things you're trying to do to figure out what happened to her, it has to end, because it's taking its toll on you. It's taking its toll on your health, on your marriage, because everybody was just put to one side while I tried to figure out what happened to her. I was writing letters to the Nigerian government, to the Polish government, just trying to figure out everything. And it was really, it was as if the enemy was trying to steal from me twice.
Right.
Which is what God said to me when he tried to just, we had to just reset my mind that, look, stop this. I see you. Let's see what we can do with this pain that you're feeling. I want you to stop this investigation, stop this advocacy, and let's try and repurpose all the feelings that you have into something better.
I can imagine that, grief, we all have grief in our lives in one way or the other, and some grief, different people process grief in different ways. And I remember for me, when my dad died, this was, it's going to be 30 years this year. And I remember I was in the middle of my exams when they hid it from me because I was in the middle of my exams. And then the day I finished my exams, they told me that my dad had passed and I had to come to Nigeria. And it was just, I was very close to my dad. I was 24 and I was shell-shocked. And I went through all the motions going to bury him. And I'll never forget, I came back to England, continued my studies, and I was sitting in the middle of a cafe in Victoria Station, and I just burst out crying. And that was the very first time I had a chance to actually grieve. Like you said, different emotions, anger, and, just many different emotions. So my question is, how have you been able to navigate that emotion, the grief, especially, I think this question can help people because grief comes in layers, doesn't it? So sometimes, how have you been able to navigate that? And what are some of the challenges? Do you think that after 8 years, you have closure?
There's grief and then there's grief. So I don't think that when you're grieving over somebody that you loved, that it ever goes away completely. I know we're all, like you said, we're all unique in how we grieve and the process and all of that. But grieving a loved one is a forever journey. That healing journey is a forever journey. And what I've found out that it doesn't ever go away, just that the intensity of how you feel just changes over time. Sometimes it actually comes back in full force again, but sometimes not. It depends also on how you're led to process the grief. So when people ask me, how did you navigate the grief? I'm always just like, I'm not really sure I navigated anything. God just helped me step by step. And because I chose for my own good, just obedience. My process was, okay, God, what are you saying I should do? Okay, we're going to set up a foundation for her. Yes, sir. What is this foundation going to do? We're going to do this. We're going to help vulnerable ladies. We're going to help vulnerable families. Okay, sir. Because he knows me. God knows each of us uniquely. He knows what we need to help us to grieve health in a healthy manner. So for me, he knew that if I could go out there and be doing things in my sister's name, to keep her name alive for good, to try and change the narrative of what happened to her, such that when you Google her name, you won't just be seeing Nigerian lady murdered in Poland or none of those nasty stories would come up, because now when you Google her name, the first thing that comes up is her foundation. Right. So he knew that. So repurposing your grief to take place of the pain is one way that you can navigate that pain. And then also, don't legislate yourself. If you want to cry, cry. We have a thing here, and I think it's a Nigerian thing, or an African thing, or a faith thing, where we sometimes think that grieving negates our faith. And so people want to, it is well, it's away. It is well, it is well. Oh, no, don't cry, it is well. No, it is well. Jesus wept.
That's right.
So I am allowed to weep. So what I didn't allow anybody to succeed, because people would try. Oh, no, don't cry. Oh, your children are watching you. There's all of that. But I kind of, by that time, I had created boundaries for myself where I allowed myself to grieve the way I knew I needed to grieve, which I think is also very helpful, And then, like you talked about the book, the writing that book was actually also part of my healing process, because part of the guilt I felt with Shley was I felt I had squandered time with her, and I had been You know, there's an arrogance you have when you think you have tomorrow.
Right.
Who told you so? And I always thought, oh, when Shley has her baby, oh, I'm going to go and camp in her house, and then I will tell her all these stories about our family before she was born.
Right.
And it's just a sheer arrogance that I just felt that, yeah, I control time like that.
Right.
And then she was gone. So writing the book was kind of like my self-soothing, and also kind of like my penance that, okay, I'm so sorry I didn't tell you all these things about our family. So here I am writing this long letter to you in the form of a book. That could also be a way to process it. Writing has always been like a mental spa for me. I've blogged for like years. When I stopped blogging, I moved to podcasting and all of that. So people can generally find, okay, what is it for me that can help me, you know, and all. And I think having a tribe around you that gets you is super important.
Yeah.
And not tribe that they're coming to camp on your head. They know when to come, and then they know when to lean back. And those kind of friends are friends you've grown up with, like since you were in secondary school. And I'm really blessed to have a tribe like that, so they know when to like stand close by and just watch over me, and then they know when to lean back and just pray for me from afar and all of that. So that really helped. And of course then my children were like my circle at that point and all. But I tell you, if you break this precious mug that you have and you grieve over it, that kind of grief, I think after a while it goes away, you know. But grieving over a loved one is forever. Why? Because you're grieving them because you love them. And the fact that they're gone, your love doesn't end.
Sure.
So your grief is actually an expression of your love still, and your love for them is going to be forever anyway. So I think that we should just come to terms with that and accept that, okay, this grief thing, it's going to be part of my life. It will change in its dimensions and its intensities, but it's not a bad thing if I use it well. And it's actually a good thing because it's expressing how much I love this person.
Sure.
You know, and also yeah.
I love what you said, especially about how we cannot, wish grief away by saying it as well. I know we do that a lot, especially in Africa. And I think one of the reasons I started this show was to have those real conversations, because we tend to stuff things under the carpet or say, yeah, it is well, or don't cry. And I love what you said about it's okay to cry. It's okay to show that you are grieving. But then you turn that grieving into a purpose, which is what you did. Can you remember that very pivotal moment where you felt like, okay, I still am grieving, but I'm going to use, I'm not, Shola's life is not going to be in vain, and there's going to become a purpose out of this. Can you remember that?
I remember it very well because it was at a return of the Helper conference. It's a women's prayer conference convened by a sister of mine, Bidemi Makmodi. And I had, so these meetings happen. There's one that happens in March, Women Cry Out, and this one happens in July. I had gone for the March one, and it was the same whining, oh Lord, please, you have to tell me what happened to Shola. This is so unfair. This guy, that was like the whole, I was just on the floor weeping. That was my whole prayer point. I need to know what happened to my sister. And then I went to this one in July, and it was the same thing. I under the table, I can actually see myself under the table there, crying again, like ugly cry. And I just hear like really audibly, it was like, Salt, get over yourself. And I was like, get up and get over yourself. And I was like, and it was God. And he was like, enough already. Enough already. Get up and open your notebook. This is what we're going to do. When you're ready to know what happened to your sister, you will know. For now, this is what we're going to do. And that was how he gave me the blueprint for the foundation. This is what you're going to do. We're going to register this foundation. We're going to make it, and it's going to do work in honor of your sister. Would that not make you happy? I was like, yes, Lord, that will make me happy. And he was like, okay, fine. And we're going to help women and children. And would that not? And that was how it was. July 16th, 2017. That was the moment. And the foundation kicked off. Actually, one of the first things we started doing, because of this issue about it is welling grief away. We started organizing, apart from helping people, women and all, we started organizing what we call the Sholly Rising events.
Okay.
And they were like events where people could come and talk about their grief. It became a thing later on, but at that point, it was unheard of. You're calling a conference for people to come and talk about their pain and how they got over it. And we had one in 2017. We had Coach Larry Olushola come as our coach, and Leila St. Matthew Daniel. So we had people talk about their grief, and the coaches then helped us to find tools to get over grief that is healthy to talk about it. So we had those like 2017, 2018, and the last one was 2019. Every year on Shirley's birthday, the weekend after her birthday, we would have that. And it helped people. It provided a safe space for people to talk about things that had really hurt them. And it wasn't just about the loss of loved ones. It was pain from church, pain, just different kinds of ways that we could be hurt as human beings. And then we graduated to giving out food packages and all of that. And the biggest errand to date has been the shelter that we've opened up in the middle of COVID to take care of survivors of domestic abuse and their children. And that was how God told me what happened to Shley for real.
Oh, wow. We need to talk about this. So we'll take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue this amazing conversation with Salt. Welcome back to Real Talk with Pam. I've been talking today to Salt Essien about her life and her experiences after losing her beloved sister. So let's dive back in. So Salt, tell us, I know you've mentioned just before the break about the foundation, but I want you to formally tell us, what is the foundation called and the mission of the foundation and some of the incredible work that you've been doing to date?
Thank you so much. So the foundation is named after Shley. So it's the Shola Adefolalu Gaska Foundation. And it's on purpose because her husband and his family tried to erase her existence of this planet.
Right.
So I'm like, you know what? It's not going to happen. We're going to name this foundation after her, and we're going to keep your name in it. So whatever you're trying to do to escape from all of this is not going to work, because every time this foundation is flashed, you will be reminded of what you did or didn't do to my sister. But we also call it the Shley Smile Factory because Shley had, I don't know if you've seen a picture of her, she had the most beautiful smile. And so our mission is really to make the world a happier place, one Shley-like smile at a time.
I love that.
Yes, so that's what we do. So like I said, we kicked off with just helping vulnerable young ladies, giving them allowances for 6 to 12 months. That was our first thing that we started doing. And we had this kind of like a payroll of young ladies and families that were really financially vulnerable. And we gave them allowances for 6 to 12 months. And then we moved on into like, okay, people need academic grants or scholarships. Just whoever God sent to us, once we could validate their story, we just did it. And our thing is to do that in the most humane way possible. No red tape. Don't make them feel as if, you're giving them handouts. Just help them, but let them keep their dignity. That was our thing. And all. And then we started having like the Shley Rising events, like I told you. And then as God began to walk me through my own journey of not just forgiving them, but forgiving myself, we started having talks about unforgiveness, and how that's important when you're grieving. Because one of the key things that block grieving, Pam, I tell you, is that we're holding on to people in our hearts. And you can't hold people in your heart and heal from grief. It's a big blocker. And I realized it took 2 years for me to really release my sister's husband and his family. But it was at the back of the 2 years that then God just gave us our biggest errand, which was the Shley Serenity place, which is a shelter for survivors of domestic abuse and their children. And remember, I was trying to say to you that when on her 40th birthday, we had like a posthumous online celebration for her because it was in the middle of COVID. She turned 40 in 2020 in September. And it was on that call that I shared the vision that God had said is what we're going to do. And at the point, I didn't realize what he was doing. It was in one of my quiet moments. I was like, oh, he's telling me this what happened to my sister.
Right.
Because why would you just from nowhere ask me to open up a shelter to take care of vulnerable women who are trying to escape from domestic abuse?
Right.
That means you're telling me this is what Shirley's situation was all about. And I was so grateful, and it just gave me even that much more zeal to go out there and set up the shelter. So we do that. So that's our biggest errand to date. So we still do the allowances and the grants and all of that, medical aid. We do that. We also do food care packages, because remember in COVID, food was a thing. So we started giving out food care packages, rice, beans, gari, and vegetable oil, just to families nominated by people I know that look, people who we know need to eat this food. They're not going to go repackage and sell. So we do that. So there's the allowances, the grants, there's the food care packages, there's the Shola Serenity place, which is a shelter, 10-bed shelter, where we take care. And to date, we started in 2021, July, and to date we've taken care of like 45 women and children.
Amazing.
And you will not believe, you will see the power of God's love transform women who come in, and everything, they're dejected, they're like beaten down by this abuse. They can't look you in the eyes and talk. And we just, our mandate is to just pour the love of God into them, as I would have loved someone to pour love into my sister. And that's what we do. And then last year in May, we added on our third big errand, which is kind of like a formal social security. It's like a safety net for like the vulnerable of the most vulnerable women in the hinterland. So not in the cities now, like in the villages, people who you know that 25,000 naira will make a big difference. And so we started that as the Adefolalu Love is a Verb initiative, because you know the Shley Smile Factory is all about Shley. Well, I've been through so much loss. I've lost my dad, my dad. So I keep saying we don't lose people; they go to heaven. So my dad passed, my mom passed. You know, so I'm like, you know what? I want to also honor them, and that's what this initiative was about. So Adefolalu is my maiden name, as you can tell from Shley's foundation. So that safety net right now, we're across 9 states in Nigeria. We have 26 women who are getting 25,000 naira every month, and that they get that formally for 12 months. And the hope is that in those 12 months, they can start something that can generate income for them at that level, you know, to sustain themselves and their family, save something, you know, towards some venture. And people always say, oh, it's good, you know, it's better to teach people how to fish than to give them the fish. My school of thought is that, who are you teaching if they're hungry? Let's feed them. When they're full, then they can come to you, and you can then teach them how to fish. So there's so much to do in the society to help people. People have different places they're called to. We are called to give them the fish. And then when they've eaten our fish and they're full, then they can come to you for empowerment through training and all of that. So those are the kind of like spaces where we play. And as you can imagine, every time we get feedback from anyone, a mom, or you know, or even just a family, thank you for this food, you don't know what then it takes the pain away. Yes, I would love Shley back. Yes, I tell God all the time that, take this foundation, give me back my sister. But since you're sovereign and that can happen, then thank you for what you're allowing me to do in her honor, because it has transformed even my life. I always say to myself that, look, Salt, you know, God just loves you, because your life would have just been some bland, purposeless life. It took your sister to go to heaven to just add meaning to your life. So I consider my life before Shley passed and after Shley passed 2 different lives. 2 different lives, you know. And I really am grateful to God and to Shley for all of it.
Amazing, amazing. I think that one of the things that I've heard today from you that I think is a helpful reminder for me, but also for women who are listening out there, or anyone listening, is you don't actually need closure to move ahead with one's life. And I think sometimes when we go through life-changing traumas or we go through either a relationship breakdown or a loss or grieving over certain things, we are always looking for closure before we can move ahead. But like you said, God literally had to sort of rebuke you and say, no,
No.
you're not going to know the reason your sister died. You need to just move, just move. And I think it's a big lesson for all of us that, we just need to surrender ourselves to God and to the process. And then the answers will come.
The answers
as
will
we're
come.
moving.
The answers will come. You will not even be expecting it because you're so busy mining out purpose from this pain, and that kind of despair is where your grief has no purpose.
Right, exactly.
That's what despair, and that's what people tend to fall into when they can't try and figure out what to do with that pain. So God always finds a way for us to make meaning out of it. And I always say, one thing I learned as well through this whole journey was that, and guys, I think guys out there do it quite well. Women, we need to learn to do that as well for ourselves and for our life's destiny. Sometimes you have to compartmentalize things.
Right.
I don't know about other women out there, but for me, my life before now, once one part of my life wasn't working well, every other part shuts down.
Sure.
Imagine if I had let that happen over this Shirley's thing. Then my role as a mom, my role as a wife, my role as an employee, I would have zeroized everything.
Right.
And just see how much more the devil would have stolen from me. So, like you said, I had to say, okay, this grief, let me put it here. Let me go and answer what God is asking me to do. He says, leave the grief, leave vengeance, everything to me. Go and do these things. It was difficult because I really wanted to get to the bottom of it, but then obedience was key. And I found out that, yes, as you're answering God and obeying Him, then He begins to tell you a bit more about that. And then you yourself, your life is being impacted as well as the lives that you're touching, depending on what He asks you to do. It's very important that we chasing closure over somebody who passed is a very slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope.
Because, so what if I find out for sure what happened? What am I going to do with it? How is it going to help me? What if today God opens the veil and I see exactly what happened to it? What is it going to do for me? I think sometimes because God loves us so much, He protects us. And He protected me until He knew I could even take it. Because by the time He even revealed it to me by sending me on the errand of the shelter, I was like, okay, all right. Okay, I get it. But if He had told me at the beginning, it wouldn't have done me any good.
That's right.
It would have even just kept me like in a really dark place for longer, So God knows stuff.
Absolutely.
I think God knows stuff. And I for me, my everything is my faith. I wouldn't be sitting here with you today without my faith, because my faith is really my relationship with God. It's not about the church I go to, or it's my personal relationship with God, where I hear Him by myself.
Sure.
And I have chosen that, okay, I'm going to obey Him. And it's in that obedience, I obeyed my way out of grief. That intense pain of grief, I obeyed my way through my grief to purpose.
Awesome. I love that. I always say that the answer you're looking for is on the other side of obedience. You have to obey first, and then you will find the answer you're looking for.
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell me, what are the key lessons that you have learned through this experience? I know you've talked about some already, but I know you have some more lessons some more nuggets that you want to share with us.
Yes. I've talked about how grief and forgiveness are like this. Yeah, you have. What I've also learned, and really talking to any of my sisters out there, Nigerians or Africans, I love love. Let your love be blind as it wants. Anywhere you want to find the love, but let the love also be wise. From my experience with my sister, if you're dating someone who is not Nigerian or African, who is like from the West, who is European, or before you marry, bring them home. let them come and see that you have people. Please. Because if you don't do that, then once you become that unit and you, to the exclusion of the rest of your family, then once you marry and take on the name, which was my experience, my sister's husband could do everything he did because she was Mrs. Gaska. And he had the right over her body and over everything. He wouldn't have been able to get away with that if he
Sure.
had come home and he had seen that this girl has family. That's one lesson I've learned. Let your love be blind, but let your love be wise. Make sure, even if you marry over there and do everything, bring him home to see that you have people. Please. Number 2, if you take out insurance or a mortgage or anything like that, you have to have a trusted person in your family that is aware.
Right.
I repeat, do not take out any kind of insurance with your husband. No matter how much he loves you, you love him, that's fine. But you have to have somebody back home, Pam, that knows about this
Right.
insurance or whatever. Because I hear it's a thing. They marry African girls, they marry Nigerian girls, love them, everything looks really good, and then they take out insurance on them.
Wow.
And then, for some reason or the other, the wife passes on. That's
They
my
draw
one thing.
down on the insurance.
Yes, I didn't know. So, it was so sad because it was after the fact that friends were like, oh, you didn't know? That's a thing there. The European... I'm like, you people watched me go to the wedding. You watched me go to give my sister, because I literally walked her down the aisle. I'm not saying scare me, but you'd have told me, Salt, please be shining your eye. Oh, watch over your sister. You don't even have to tell me details. I'm an adult. I'll be like, okay. Because as far as I was concerned, she was totally loved by this guy.
Right.
I was blindsided. So that's one thing. Come home. Let somebody back home have a trusted confidant who knows details of any kind of mortgages or insurance things that are being signed. And then finally, if there's any medical issues, if you're not well, if you're having hospital visits and all of that, somebody back home needs to know about it. Somebody needs to know your medical history back home. A sister, your mom. Please. That's one of the 3. I actually dedicated a blog to all these things back then. I was like, let your love be wise. I have no issues with marry from anywhere. And the truth of the matter is that this actually applies to all relationships, to be honest. But I think because of the cultural differences and what I experienced with this guy, because my sister had no voice.
Right.
Because she was gone and I had no information, so I couldn't even counter what he was saying. His word was gospel. But if she had brought me in, remember I shared in the beginning with I was really upset. Like, if she had brought me in, but she didn't, because she was in love and she trusted him. And even if there was anything a little bit wrong in some other areas, she didn't want to worry me. But I really pray that whoever is listening to me, and you're in that kind of interracial or intermixed kind of relationship, that you just hear the pain and sincerity in my voice. I know that I'm not trying to scatter your relationship or anything. I'm just trying to help you to protect yourself if, God forbid, you're no longer in the picture. There has to be somebody who can speak for you on this side. And those are the 3 ways I know that you can do that. So apart from on that side of lessons I've learned, I've also learned the fact that, nobody's going to choose you if you don't choose yourself, Pam.
Right.
So at the beginning of this journey, I let people make choices for me that I really regretted because I didn't stand up for myself. And I've grown to the point where that has had to stop. Because if you don't choose yourself, why should anybody else? If you don't choose your own mental wellness, if you don't choose taking care of yourself, if you don't choose doing things are going to make you feel better, why should anybody else do that for you?
Right.
So I've learned that through this whole process, that in as much as I am running these errands for God, He's always very careful to tell me, keep your boundaries. Keep your boundaries and don't let anybody kind of try and guilt you. Because I'm the firstborn in my family. So my family were all over me. Oh, what happened, Shirley? Have you figured out? They were calling me, and I was just like, what's going on here? You're an adult as well. You can help me go try and figure it out.
Right.
But I let that weigh down on me for a bit, but until God said to me, no, enough. Stop picking these calls. Choose yourself over this. Choose your mental wellness over this. And it cuts across every area of life, not even just about grief. I think as women, we tend to always, we choose ourselves last. I had to learn to put myself first and do things that I knew were going to help me on my healing journey, even if nobody was patting me on the back or nobody understood, the process. And eventually, when you start to choose yourself, guess what? People part ways. They move for you. But you were the one who was allowing them in the first place to block you because you were afraid of what will people say. I freed myself from that bondage, emancipated myself from mental slavery. Let people be saying.
Absolutely.
Let them say. The only person that who has a right to judge me is the one who keeps me breathing. And once I can put my head on my pillow at night knowing that he's saying, well done, Salt, that's it.
That's it. Amazing nuggets, amazing nuggets. I think so powerful. Also, I think generally women need to learn boundaries. Generally, like you said, it's not just for relationships, in every area of our lives. And that's, again, I always reiterate, that's why the tagline for this show is called, where authenticity meets conversation. If you're authentic with yourself, you learn how to keep your boundaries for your mental health. And if you're mentally healthy, you can actually give more to other people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Honestly, it really, and it's a continuous journey anyway. I think we keep evolving as we go on, but I just know that the Salt talking to you today is way different from the Salt that started this journey, way different from the Bola that was even before then, in terms of just being I'm very sure of why I'm here. And my focus, you know how they say, make up your mind before you have to make up your mind?
Right.
That's something that I have done for myself, that, okay, I have made up my mind that I want to please God in everything that I'm doing, including this work that we're doing with the foundation. And that's really just it. So if anything comes that is taking me away from that, I've already made up my mind. I don't have to think about it.
Right.
So it's hand in hand. Make up your mind before you have to make up your mind about anything that you're doing in life, and then just focus on your focus. Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
Saying.
Stay in your lane.
Absolutely.
Because people say, "Oh, why are you just giving money? Why can't you train?" I said, we're not called to train. We're called to give them, because there's a need. Oh my gosh, here's some of the phone calls we have. Women who are escaping abuse, who have had to leave Lagos and go back to where their parents are, rent they don't have, school fees they don't have, and they know they can reach out to somebody and they're probably going to get help. That's why we're here. We are called to do that. Oh, why can't you? Don't you want to train? Or counsel or have a psychiatrist? No. I'm not even a pastor. Talk less of a counselor. Ours is to provide shelter. So you have to make up your mind that God is your COO, CEO, and what he has said, because people will bring good things for you to do, good suggestions. But because I've made up my mind that is only what God has asked me to do that I'm going to do, is always very easy to very nicely say, I hear you and I see what you're saying. And I'm sure there are people who are going to be in that space, or perhaps even you can go play in that space. But this is our lane. This is where we're staying.
Right. And do you, just asking for the women who are going through domestic violence, do you refer them on to other organizations that is beyond your remit?
Yeah. So how it works actually is that the people who come to us are actually referred to us or being sponsored by a church or an NGO or Lagos State. Actually, Lagos State is one of our good partners. They refer cases to us, and so they're already working those angles out. They already have, if they need counselors talking to them,
Right.
they're already working with them on the police side or on the legal side. So we are just there to provide shelter for their wards while they're working all of that out. And we've had success stories where we've, people have left us, moved into their own spaces, they're working or going to school and all of that. One of my favorite stories is the very first family that we took in, a survivor with 3 children, and she stayed with us. By the time she was leaving, she moved into her own place. She then went to trained herself in real estate because she was empowered. Yeah, she's working now. If you see her before and after pictures, you will not believe it's the same family.
Amazing.
And what we've done to continue to help, because we know that the transition is not always easy. So you leave a shelter, taking care of the children, trying to find work and all of that is a bit difficult. So in some cases we say, you know what, leave the children. Come and see them every month. During holidays, they come to you. So you can focus on getting your feedback on the ground. And that has worked very well, for at least two of our residents. And hopefully by the end of this session, when the kids are going to their new class, then they'll be ready to go back to their mom.
Fantastic. Just finally, are there opportunities to volunteer for your organization? And also, we would love to get all your details, so we'll put it on the platform.
Okay.
So if people want to get involved or donate,
Thank you.
That would be great.
Yeah, thank you. No, we've had volunteers. We've even had teenage volunteers who just come just to play with the children.
Right.
We've had women who come just to pray with the women, and all. So we do have opportunities for volunteering. If people are interested, you just call us, let us know, and then when we have a need, we will definitely call on you. Yes, like you said, we can share the details of how people can help us in what we're doing. We are very happy to take donations in kind. I tell people that I actually prefer the donations in kind, the provisions, the things you need in a house generally.
Sure.
Gold, I call them gold because those are like the essential commodities over and above cash. I would love cash. That's very useful, very good as well. But I always tell people, if you can bring me a carton of Indomie, I'll love you forever, things like that. So yeah.
You got your carton of Indomie from me.
Yay!
Or 2.
Yay! Yeah.
Great.
So those, because it's basically you're running a home. So
Sure.
think of everything anybody would need to run a home with. We need them on a daily basis, and I'm really grateful. If you're watching this and you're one of our partners, either financially or in kind, God bless you. Like we always say, your treasury will never run dry in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. Thank you so much, because we actually have like over 70 individuals who support us, and out of the 70 we have like about 12 or so who are like recurring.
Right.
So maybe every month or every quarter they'll give something, and that's how we've been sustained. Because we don't as yet have any formal corporate sponsorship or and all. So you can imagine that it really warms my heart that people know this story and they are invested in what we're doing because of Shley. Because things are hard for people to continuously bring out of what they are trying to manage for themselves and still give to you. That says a lot, and that really helps me along my healing journey. That okay, people they see what I'm doing and they believe in the work we're doing, and they're ready to give to us, on a consistent basis. So thank you.
So thank you, Salt, for being on Real Talk with Pam. Thank you for keeping your sister's name alive and also turning your pain into purpose and using it for such a good cause. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to share my story. I hope it blessed somebody out there.
Yes, I'm sure it has. I'd like to thank Salt for sharing her remarkable story of resilience and purpose. Remember, pain can be a catalyst for growth, and Salt's journey is a testament to that. Till next time, keep being authentic. Bye for now.